can a person be overweight and healthy if they have normal cholesterol levels and are not diabetic?
Is overweight defined by having a high BMI?
Excuse me, I think I'm supposed to go first.
Oh, no, I just want to get a definition of what overweight means. Is it defined by high BMI, or is it just a visual thing, or is it a weight thing? Because I think that matters.
How about looking in the mirror?
And that means what?
That's a way of telling you if you're overweight. If you look in the mirror, you know.
Not necessarily, because there are people that weigh a lot, but their body composition is excellent.
Okay. Anyway, in answer to your question, can you be overweight and still be healthy? The answer is yes. But you'd have to get overweight on nuts and seeds and avocados and other whole plant foods, not on the usual reason that people get overweight, which is they eat animal foods and oils. The fat you eat is the fat you wear. That's why people are overweight. So, you know, fortunately, it doesn't happen very often because nuts and seeds and avocados, you know, except for the modern supermarket in the United States and Europe, they were a rare commodity. You only had nuts coming into season for a couple of weeks of the year. And the same thing with avocados. They only came into season a couple of weeks of the year, but you know, every day in every supermarket, they're in season. And that's the problem. And that may be why a lot of people become what I call fat vegans. Not necessarily unhealthy, but you know what? My guess is somebody who's overweight, who's a vegan, who's trying to save the planet, who's trying to save animals, who has great intentions. My feeling is if they looked healthy, they'd be a better salesman. And that's why I pleaded with people who are what, you know, I term fat vegans, to understand why they have a personal appearance that doesn't fit in with the rest of their message. And they need to eat a starch-based diet and get those nuts and seeds and avocados and you know, fake foods, fake cheesecakes, and so on, vegan cheesecakes out of their diet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a big fan of obesity. If someone's got a big pot belly, there's two things making that abdomen pooch out. Under the skin, the subcutaneous fat pumps out estrogen. It's the largest estrogen secreting tissue in the body. Doesn't do great things for women with breast lumps or guys with big prostates and early prostate cancer. So that concerns me about overweight. And inside the abdomen, the visceral fat that surrounds the intestines, this is metabolically active and it pumps out inflammatory cytokines. It pumps out interleukin-1, interleukin-6, and this fans inflammatory reactions throughout the body. And so many diseases, from arthritis to cancers, have an inflammatory component, even depression. And so obesity is a state of inflammation. And no matter how one rationalizes it, in my opinion, you can't be healthy and be obese. Overweight, then you get into the BMI thing about, well, a big muscular guy might have a big BMI and he's obese on the scale, and he's really not. But when we're talking about, honest to goodness, excess fat, someone is over fat on the body, it's a state of inflammation. And I just can't view that as healthy, even though the person's psychological state, listen, I'm fat, that's the way I am. And if they're not losing sleep over, God bless them, that's wonderful. But as far as the state of inflammation in their body, I think it promotes disease on a lot of levels. So no, I don't think you can be over fat and healthy as well.
Yeah, so I think that, and the reason why I ask is because when you look at population studies, what they use is BMI, right? And I see a lot of people in my office which BMI is high, but their body fat count is low. So what we are concerned about is not just overweight. I think we're concerned about over fat. And yes, a big waistline is a huge indicator that there's a problem and a lot of inflammation in the body. So our focus is over fat, not just overweight. And that's a huge problem. I think Dr. Kapler said it correctly. Systemic inflammation, and nothing good that ever comes from that. The one study that I saw recently, which was a paradox, showed that in men with advanced prostate cancer who were a bit overweight, not obese, fared better than those who were not overweight. And I guess when you're on chemotherapy or something with advanced prostate cancer, then you want to have some substance, even if it's some fat, because you need it, because you start becoming, cachexia is one of the biggest killers in with patients with chemotherapy. So maybe that's why, I don't know, I didn't understand that well. That's a paradox, because studies do show that men who are overweight have a higher tendency for getting prostate cancer and for getting advanced prostate cancer and even dying from it. So, but overall, it's a problem. High fat, not over fat, being over fat, not just being overweight. Let's be clear. Can I say one other thing? The problem also becomes visceral fat, right? That is the main problem, which is the fat around your organs. I do see a lot of people that are slim fat, right? So they're slim but fat. They have a lot of fat in their bodies, and I think that's a big problem, because most people tend to gauge their level of health whether they're slim or fat, and I think that slim fat people think they're healthy. And when I look at their labs and when we do a body composition, their fat levels are 30% or higher, which is pretty high. So I think there's something there that needs to be addressed and looked at, which a lot of there's been no really big trials and studies on that particular area that I think it's important.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the last question that we debated on about fish and protein. And
Oh no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
I do just want to clarify, just, because it's okay, everyone's allowed to have any thought, but I do want to clarify that, and I'm a conference organizer, not a researcher, but we have had 75 speakers, and, a good 40 of them were on diet and nutrition. All of them, 100%, I could read their names: Milton Mills, Steve Blake, Nick Delgado, Josh Ellman, Julian Heaver, David Wolf, Gabriel Cousins, Sunil Pai, Pam Popper, Alan Goldhammer, Baxter Montgomery, on and on the list goes. Brian Clement, Anna Marie Clement, T. Colin Campbell, Caldwell Esselstyn, Joel Kahn, Kim Williams, Robert Osfeld, Will Tuttle, on and on. 100% of them are saying to definitely avoid fish completely for health reasons based on scientific research. They're saying that one, and 100% of them is saying that on a whole food plant-based diet, they never see protein deficiencies. Now, they could all be wrong. That's possible, but they're all claiming that they've been researching this for many, many years. They provide research. They have involved PowerPoints. They're heart surgeons. So just I want to clarify. I don't want to leave this loose. I want to be clear. Like for you, Dr. Espinosa, are you saying, I know your focus is on prostate cancer and you do great work with that, and I know maybe I caught you off guard with questions that you haven't focused on, but is it possible that this is not an area that you focus as much on, and you are trying to just be more open-minded to bring more people into the nutrition conversation, where maybe this conference is people who are very devoted to the exact truth, they're not feeling loose at all? Do you still feel that how should our audience interpret the fact that you're saying something different than 35 other speakers on news? How should our audience interpret this?
So I think I do a decent amount of research on nutrition. I can't say I look at everything because it's impossible, right? And I've looked at the research on fish and fish consumption as much as I can. I'm sure somebody can send me some research on it. That you have to look at the preponderance of research when you look at research, not just one or two papers. At least that's how I do it. And so what I am saying is, and it's probably I'm probably oversaying this. I think it is possible to get enough protein from a plant-based diet. For sure. I think it's very difficult for a lot of people, but certainly not impossible, clearly. Okay. I think that fish is particularly salmon, and I want to emphasize that, because salmon is low in mercury and has nutritional value, particularly if it's not farm raised and so forth. I think that's helpful and important. Sardines are as well, by the way, very low in mercury, nutritional value there. I do think that some fats are essential, of course, and that's part of the reason why I think that they're good and important. And I think that the type of conference that you have is Steve, is one that is sort of like a plant-based type of conference. So you're gonna draw more of the same type of people. I don't know that you would have invited me if you would have known that I promote the consumption of things like salmon. I'm only joking. I know you knew that from before. We had conversations. Look, I think that we want to set people up to succeed and not fail. And I think when we're overly restrictive, where there is very little to no evidence, I think we are making them more restrictive, and it becomes a problem. We want to set people up to live a healthier lifestyle, and diet is one important component of that. Certainly not the only thing. I even give people cheat days to do whatever they want, because I think it's more sustainable in the long term, in the long game, as opposed to don't ever have a steak ever. No, my God, you do that, you're gonna die from. I don't do that. I don't do fear mongering, and I just look again. My approach is look at the research. I've seen a lot of research. Look at the preponderance of the research, not one last study, and look at the conclusion, and that's it. And then look at what my own experience for 25 years, been through every diet possible. And then I look at what I see clinically, and that's how I form my approaches and my opinions. That's as best as I could do.
Well, you know, I just ask the audience to look around you. You know, look in your past. You've met thousands of people. How many cases of protein deficiency have you seen? I've never seen one. I've never heard of one. I've never read about one. In fact, I've read that it's impossible to design a diet that's protein deficient based around any natural diet.
Protein deficiency means it technically is the consumption of all the important amino acids.
I know the important amino acids, I bet, better than you do.
And
you know,
perhaps I'm not. Perhaps I'm just letting
letting
the audience. I'm sure there's a lot of people that will hear this.
Excuse me, they have all the amino acids, and this is again nonsense that causes people to pick the wrong foods, and the consequences their health. You're not talking about something minor. You're talking about heart disease and breast cancer and prostate cancer and rheumatoid arthritis, and
from what? From protein? From eating too much protein?
From picking high protein foods because they believe the nonsense that you're trying to spread.
No, that's not true at all. At least from a prostate cancer perspective, that's an oversimplification that people are eating more protein and then getting prostate cancer. That's not true at all. In fact, I see many vegans with prostate cancer come to my office, and many vegans who have high risk prostate cancer come to my office. So I don't, that's an oversimplification.
Well, you can mark every word I said. You've never seen a case of protein deficiency. You've never seen a case of.
I'm not saying that they have prostate cancer because they have a protein deficiency, but I'm saying.
You see, you're misinterpreting what I just said. You allowed me to speak some words, and then you went back to what you were only hearing yourself. I said the foods that are sold as high protein, the ones that people pick looking for protein, are the ones that give them prostate cancer.
That's not true. That's not true.
It is.
That is not true. That is not true. In fact, I challenge you to send me, I'll give you my email, send me one paper on that. And here's why. Because when you look at these studies closely, they don't say that meat consumption increases the risk of prostate cancer. If you look at it closely, what they do say is that processed meat increases the risk, and meats cooked in high temperature increases the risk, not meats themselves. And that's a major difference. So, and I don't think that you need red meat, for example, to prevent anything, by the way. I'm just saying that I am looking at the literature objectively, and I don't promote paleo, and I don't get invited to paleo conferences or anything. I'm just saying that consumption of proteins is not connected necessarily to prostate cancer, which is the area that I focus on. So,
well, I think we've beaten that subject to death, and I think I've made myself absolutely clear.
You are, and I think I am as well. And I think it's not convincing that you have to go only vegan. Now, and I do appreciate some of the environmental aspects of it, and I think that the reduction of some of these things would be important because of that, and we could do a whole lot better there for sure.
I think what you're saying is in line with what we see so many experts, so to speak, talk about how it's difficult, how there's this way you can get out of the explanation or that way. You know, the truth is simple and easy to understand. The rich Western diet gives people.
Yeah, but your truth is not universal
Stop
truth,
interrupting
Dr.
me, please?
McDougall.
Would you
Your truth,
stop
your truth
interrupting
is
me?
not universal truth.
Would you stop interrupting me, please? You know, go, Steve, take control of this thing.
Okay, so let's move on from this. I will note that just everyone can come to their own conclusions, but I do want to note that for our conference, the 75 speakers, they are saying, the 40 people who spoke on nutrition all were saying that a whole food plant-based diet that does not include fish is better than one that does include fish, and they are saying that they are not aware of protein deficiencies. So again, I'm a conference organizer, but this is I would say unanimous among all these speakers. It doesn't mean that they're right, but I just want to point out that that was what the rest of the conference did say.